Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. Today, I'm going to be talking about the project I'm currently working on that tries to understand how does landscape structure and configuration affect tree diversity in a dry forest landscape in Ecuador. And in the bottom, you're going to see my email address on my Twitter account. Feel free to contact me for any questions or comments. As a background, this is what is left of tropical dry forests. On the left, the neotropics, and on the right, Ecuador. So they have been heavily deforested. And because of that, they're considered a biodiversity hotspot. And I've been working in this area for quite a while, specifically in an area in coastal Ecuador of about 19,000 hectares. Some of the things that I've been already studied that I have some results is about land cover. So here is a map that details the distribution of different forest types, including secondary forest and old-growth forest. And here is another study about tree diversity. And here are some examples of the number of species in mature forest, secondary forest, plantation, and pasture, and the number of endemics. So these are my previous studies, and what I'm currently working on is trying to see how the landscape configurations that I can derive from the land cover classification can explain tree diversity. In other words, based on the map that I've developed, that I published, I'm developing some site predictors, patch metrics, and landscape metrics to try to see how those affect diversity. And I'm using hills numbers for overall tree diversity and also the presence absence of endemic species. And I'm calculating all these indices in buffers around all the sampling sites where I estimated tree diversity. So going really quickly to some of the results that I have so far. Using a generalized linear model with the responses hills numbers and the predictors are species, site, patch, and landscape characteristics. I did a couple of models, and the more parsimonic one, it's one that uses just two variables, land cover and mean shape index. Land cover, as expected, old-growth forest always has more species, but it's interesting that shape index was also used over here, indicating that the forests that are more rounded and with less age are more likely to have a higher diversity of trees. This is another model that I run, a generalized linear mixed model. The difference with the previous one is that we can let the coefficients vary depending on species. In this case, the response is presence, absence of endemic species, and the predictors species, site, patch, and landscape characteristics. And here are some graphs of that one. Here are the fixed effects of the model. You can see that the only variable that is important as overall is wood density. However, there are some variables that are significant depending on the species. So that's the beauty of these generalized linear models. We can see here that distance to road varies depending on the species. And we can also see that the presence of absence of certain species is going to be different depending on land cover type. And in land cover type, being in secondary forest is something that's going to be beneficial for some species, but it's going to negatively affect other ones. So conclusions that I have so far, as expected, land cover significantly explains variation in tree species diversity across sites. Forest shape is important too. Apparently bigger patches, less exposed to ages, may be better to promote tree diversity. In old-growth forests, the likelihood of finding endemic species is relatively equal for all species and determined more by species wood density. In secondary forests, the likelihood of finding endemic species increases significantly for some, but decreases from others. And here are some things that I thought I will bring to the discussion in this conference, some things I need help with. Sites are spatially autocorrelated, and therefore buffers overlap significantly. I will be interested to learn how to deal with these overlapping buffers. Selecting uncorrelated predictors for the models is problematic. I'm trying to use variant inflation factors, but I will be curious to learn if there are other alternatives or suggestions. And finally, subendemic species have a small sample size. What is the best way to deal with small sample size in a GLMM? With that, I leave you